Okay guys, this is getting kind of spicy, but I must tell you that some of this information is very similar to the one in the last video about Israel. Rockets target Tel Aviv after Gaza tower destroyed. The 13-story building was attacked an hour and a half after residents and local people were warned to evacuate. Reuters news agency reports Israel's military says it is targeting militias in Gaza in response to earlier rocket attacks. At least 31 people have died in some of the worst violence in years. The international community has urged both sides to end the escalation, which follows days of unrest in Jerusalem. Militias had already fired hundreds of rockets towards Jerusalem and other areas. 3 people have been killed in Israeli areas, while at least 28 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said earlier that the main militant group, Hamas, has crossed a red line by firing rockets towards Jerusalem for the first time in years. Hamas, which controls Gaza, says it has been acting to defend Jerusalem's El-Aqsa Mosque from Israeli aggression and terrorism, after the site, which is holy to Muslims and Jews, saw clashes between Israeli police and Palestinians on Monday that left hundreds injured. The past few days have seen the worst violence in Jerusalem since 2017. It followed mounting Palestinian anger over the threatened eviction of families from their homes in occupied East Jerusalem by Jewish settlers. Tension had already been stoked by a month of altercations between protesters and police in the predominantly Arab part of the city. Hamas has launched rockets at Tel Aviv and its suburbs in response to enemies targeting of residential towers. Video footage from the city showed rockets streaking through the night sky, some exploding as they were hit by Israeli interceptor missiles. A 50-year-old woman was killed by a rocket in Rishon LeZion, near Tel Aviv, Israeli officials said. In the Tel Aviv suburb of Holon, a rocket hit an empty bus. Israeli police spokesman Miki Rosenfeld told AFP news agency a girl of 5 and 2 women, 150 and 130, was injured in the town. In Tel Aviv itself, pedestrians ran for shelter and diners streamed out of restaurants, while others fled themselves on pavement as the sirens sounded, according to Reuters. Ben Gurion Airport briefly halted flights, and an energy pipeline between the cities of Eilat and Ashkelon was hit. These rockets were launched after the destruction of the Hanadi Tower in Gaza, which houses an office used by political leadership of Hamas. Hours after the collapse, there are still no reports of casualties. There are reports that a second high-rise building was also destroyed by the Israelis after a warning to evacuate. Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz said the Israeli strikes were just the beginning. Terror organizations have been hit hard, and it will continue to be hit because of the decision to hit Israel, he said. We will return peace and quiet for the long term. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh said the group was ready if Israel chose to escalate. If Israel wants to escalate, we are ready for it. And wants to stop, we are also ready, he said in a televised address. There is a new balance of force. The UN Security Council will meet privately on Wednesday to discuss the conflict, the diplomats said. The fundamental reason for the renewed violence does not change. It is the open wound of the unresolved conflict between Jews and Arabs that has blighted and ended Palestinian and Israeli lives for generations. This latest episode has happened because of the tension in Jerusalem, the sharpest part of the conflict. The holy sites in the old city are national as well as religious symbols. Crisis affecting them has often ignited violence. The triggers for what has happened in this time include heavy-handed Israeli policing on Palestinians during Ramadan and controversial efforts in the Israeli courts to evict Palestinians from their homes. But other events could have had the same effect. This was a crisis waiting to happen, a conflict that once again had been left to fester. Leaders on both sides have concentrated on safeguarding the old positions. The biggest challenge of making peace has not been addressed seriously for years. Early on Tuesday, two women, one in her 60s, the other in her 80s, were killed in a rocket attack on southern Israeli city of Ashkelon, with one other person seriously injured, medics say. Hamas says fired 137 rockets at Ashkelon and nearby Ashdod in the space of 5 minutes, and warned it has many surprises prepared if the fighting continues. At least 95 people received treatment in Israeli hospitals as a result of the attacks. The Israeli military said earlier that 90% of rockets has been intercepted by its Iron Dome missile defense system. Among the terror targets in Gaza, it has said it has struck were two attack tunnels being dug under the border with Israel. Among those killed by Israeli airstrikes was the head of Islamic Jihad Group Special Rocket Unit, Salman Abed el-Mamluk, and the commander of a Hamas anti-attack missiles unit is also said to have been killed. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza reported that at least 20 Palestinians, including 10 children, have been killed in Israeli strikes, and more than 150 others have been injured. Victims include a 59-year-old woman and a disabled son, and 7 members of one family, including 3 children, and Beit Hanan, who has caused the violence. The fight between Israel and Hamas was triggered by days of escalating clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police at a holy hilltop compound in East Jerusalem. The site is revered by both Muslims, who call it the Haram al-Sharif, noble sanctuary, and Jews, for whom it is known as Temple Mount. Hamas demanded Israel remove the police from there, in nearby predominantly Arab district of Sheikh Jarrah, where Palestinian families face eviction by Jewish settlers. The fate of Jerusalem, with its deep religious and national significance to both sides, lies at the heart of the decades-old Israel-Palestinian conflict. Israel, in effect, annexed East Jerusalem in 1980 and considered the entire city its capital, though this is not recognized by the vast majority of other countries. Palestinians claim the eastern half of Jerusalem as the capital but hope for a state of their own. Some of this information is a repeat from the last video, but repetition builds wisdom. But maybe I'm just rambling. Have a good day. Let me know what you think in the comment section.